While we all agree with collaboration as an idea and its impact, yet a lot of organizations shy away from the collaborative opportunities. So how do we encourage it in the ecosystem? And why should organizations look forward to it? We'll be exploring this in our next conversation on Power of Collaboration, Key to Social Transformation. In this conversation, we'll be joined by 3 individuals who have demonstrated the impact of collective action. It's my pleasure to introduce the panelists to you. Our first panelist is Mr. Pradeep Nair, who's the Regional Director of Ford Foundation for India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. He's a seasoned public and private sector leader who brings deep regional expertise and more than 20 years of experience building partnerships among government, corporate, philanthropic, and civil society partners. Our second panelist is Ms. Ayeshna Kalyan, who is the co-founder of Varitra Foundation. She studied journalism and development communications and then went on to work as a CSR professional at TIS Mumbai. Supporting other nonprofits in their social impact journey, Ayeshna soon realized the need to address the persistent issues of education in her home state, Haryana. At present, she looks after partnership management, strategic planning, and program design of Varitra. And our final panelist for this session is Mr. Shubhankar Paul, who is the co-founder of Lantern EduSports. He's an engineering graduate who, after experiencing the corporate life, went on to become a Teach for India fellow. The idea of Lantern was born while he was completing his fellowship, and since then, he has been working towards imagining every child not only equipped with academic knowledge, but also with 21st century skills. And now, I would like to invite all our panelists and request Ayeshna to open the discussion by sharing her experience of collaboration. Over to you, Ayeshna.
Thank you so much, Parul. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ayeshna Kalyan, and I'm co-founder of Varitra Foundation. It is such a powerful and positive note to begin our day with a concept like collaboration and to be sharing this space with the fellow speakers. For me, collaboration has always been a notion which has been an integral value in my work and journey, and also behind conceptualizing Varitra. Interestingly, Varitra happens to be a Sanskrit word which means an umbrella, and for us it has always symbolized convergence of people and their efforts coming together, or if you see the other way around, it also means diverging ideas outside. We currently work in rural Haryana on whole school transformation in 20 government schools, and we work in villages which are situated on Yamuna belt near the Haryana-UP border, where we work with first generation goers. When we started out, we realized that in order to bring in any change, any substantial change in a school, we would require to work on multiple components. And the reason why I say this is because we never started with any one fixed component. We were very stubborn about what we wanted to do, but not how we wanted to do. And the reason is that most of the issues that you see in a school space are either interlinked or they are intersectional. And clearly, when you realize that, you also realize that as a single organization, it might not be possible for you to do everything. So right from the designing stage, we've been very mindful of placing collaboration at the heart of everything that we do. We started working with the government departments, local panchayats, and we adopted advocacy as an approach to bring in infrastructural transformation in the school. And we were questioned as if as to why was that the first thing that we picked up. And I'm going to tell you why, because when we started working in these communities and we spent a lot of time the first 2 months to only get to know the community, we realized that children going to government schools, especially in these lower socioeconomic villages, had very low or minimal aspiration. They also did not have a lot of role models to look up to. And that sense of pride when you go to a school was sort of missing amongst the children. So we started working on models like Bala painting, which is building as learning aid, or we started building playgrounds, learning in a few villages. We also managed to build learning grounds, and we also undertook basic repairs. And the idea was, how could we give an identity to the village school and for the children to sort of imbibe that sense of pride in them, and also for parents. So with the help of Manrega, with the help of Sarpanches, with the help of district administration, we were able to undertake this very cost intensive component. Next, we started building libraries across these schools and also started running reading programs. And though the start was slow, we managed to systemize library as a component in the curriculum of 4 schools, 4 government schools who now have a weekly library period. Through our book donation drives across multiple cities, we were able to raise more than 5,000 books from the community. We also work on remedial learning. We run post-school learning enhancement centers, which we do in association with local youth from the communities who are either graduates or 12th pass or are aspiring teachers. And we train them as para-educators and call them Shikshan Mitra. We've trained around 52 Shikshan Mitra over the past 2 years. We also undertook child leadership as an important component in the work, which we do through Bal Parishads. And this we've done through advisory support, technical support, and in partnership with organizations and individuals who are domain experts, who've closely worked on issues like gender awareness, sexual and reproductive health, child safety. And it's been a big learning process for us. And through this one component, we've been able to do very interesting activities that we otherwise probably wouldn't have actively thought of, like kitchen gardening or undertaking community rallies, youth meetings. And lastly, we've also tried very hard to put community at the heart of planning, to also make sure that they are very they're actively engaged in the whole process of reimagining how their village school should look like. So we work with the SHG members, we work with the school management committee, with any active youth in the community who wish to do something for education. And with them, we've been able to understand what is the need prioritization in the community. So the idea behind collaborating for us was not necessarily to save money or to save efforts. It was more along the side that how could we as a social startup could also fill in voids that we would have had. The co-founding team, we all of us, we always treated ourselves as outsiders, because this was almost close to a decade that we were outside Haryana. Me and my co-founder, we belonged to Haryana, but we'd stepped out for higher education. We only returned after 8-9 years. And we wanted the community to sort of draw the roadmap for whatever we were doing. And this helped us also to engage them and not leave them out as spectators to the whole process of change making. It also helped us not create any roadblocks, because the thinking that we are going to be open, the thinking and the thought of accepting that we may not know everything, and while we want to do a lot of things, we can't do it as a team of probably 4 or 5 or as one single organization. Over the past 2.5 years, we've also partnered with a university, with a private school outside, based out of Delhi NCR, with almost 7 organizations, and in spaces which are complementary to education. So we've also partnered in skill development of the youth, women livelihoods. And the idea behind doing all of this is to also understand that what do children aspire after education, because we spend a lot of time on imagining what education should look like, and not necessarily what children are going to do after they go through the whole process of education. So it's been an eye opener. It's been a real learning journey, placing the holistic development of a child at the center. We realize that अगर हमने एक समय पे 2-3 चीजों पर काम नहीं किया, तो वो as a school, as the whole school environment may not start showing the improvement that we wanted to show. And so basically this is my story, and I would now like to ask Shubhankar his story. Why does he look forward to collaborating, and what has collaboration, how has it played out for his organization in an urban setup? Over to you, Shubhankar.
Thank you, Ayeshna. It was really inspiring to hear your experience of collaboration. Good morning, all. I'm Subhankar Paul from London EduSports Foundation. Before I start sharing my thoughts, I would like to share a quote by Helen Keller, which is very close to my heart. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. I work with two low-income private schools in an urban slum, Malwani, in Mumbai. The inhabitants here are majorly migrants from the lesser developed states of India, mostly work as daily wage earners or are employed in the unorganized sector. Although the access to education is much better in this community than in a rural place, unique challenges like uncertainty in livelihood, violence, religious and gender biases, substance abuse, health issues due to living in unhygienic conditions, and other common challenges like lack of proper counseling and guidance for students as well as parents, lack of trained teachers, lack of efficient school leadership and management structures have been deterrents in students achieving their fullest potential. Only 26% of the students graduate among those who start schooling. Fortunately, as the schools are in Mumbai, different NGOs over time have come and done the interventions ranging from academics, co-curriculars, providing infrastructural support to the schools. In my experience of 3 years of being a Teach for India fellow, and after that, 2 years as an assistant school leader, I realized that there are different interventions in this urban school system, but they were all working in silos. The interventions could not leverage each other's strengths. They were not integrated in the whole school development plan, and thus the outcomes that they were able to derive were very short term and not sustainable. I approached the school leaders, and together we envisioned what would happen if the different interventions started working towards one common goal. We collaborated with the Teach for India fellows in the schools to get excellent quality learning resources for the children, to reinforce school-wide structures. We collaborated with the different other NGOs who were experts on their own fields of co-curriculars, counseling, providing infrastructure, for aligning their goals with the school goals. We came up with a monitoring and evaluation method, which the school leader was regularly updated upon. As a result of this common method, the agents, the school staff, and all the different NGOs were clear of their roles and could see how they were contributing in helping the school achieve their vision. Apart from the clarity in roles, we also collaborated and organized an intra-school and inter-school competition where we could get the validation of our collaborative efforts towards providing the holistic education to 1,500 children in the two schools. The spirit of collaboration did not stop even during the lockdown, the school closure during the lockdown. We started our program summer of 2020, which focused on academic as well as non-academic content like social emotional learning, fitness, etc., to ensure that learning continued for the students during lockdown, and also that they felt safe, secure, and had an outlet to their emotions and energy. This would have been very difficult to do it all by our own for two reasons. The existing teachers and the school did not have the skills required to take online classes. Also, the schools currently are in financial trouble with the students not being able to pay their fees, so they are not able to employ the regular number of teachers. We collaborated with existing partners, got new partners on board, got volunteers from different parts of India to make sure learning did not stop. Not only the spirit of collaboration was limited to education, but these two schools came together with 4 other schools in the community and together were able to raise close to 18 lakhs in funds and also relief materials in kind during the lockdown to help more than 3,000 families, some of them multiple times. Going ahead, we are collaborating with Barefoot Edu Foundation, who are experts in early childhood education and also an incubator of Edumentum, to launch a school leadership incubator, Rehnuma. In this program, we envision the school leader to be an entrepreneur and the school as an organization. We build the capacity of the school leaders, not only in school management, but also in efficient communications, fundraising, building the entrepreneurial mindset so that they can themselves undertake the school transformation projects. Both the organizations came together to solve a common challenge that these low-income schools were facing of sustainability and effective school management, which actually got aggravated due to the lockdown, brought in the collective skills and experiences, brainstormed, and came up with this idea of the school leadership incubator. This, of course, is my views developed from the limited understanding and through my limited experience in the social sector. As fairly new organizations, we believe that collaboration is one of the significant ways of bringing in change at a larger level. But Pradeep sir, you have been a part of the change process for long and have seen many organizations grow. So would like to hear your views regarding the readiness of this ecosystem for collaboration.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubhankar. Thank you, Ayeshna. And thank you, Farouk. And thank you for the team for organizing this on a warm and humid Saturday morning here in Delhi. It's a pleasure to be with you all. I see that there's quite a few people logged into this session. And the first thing I got to say before I answer your question or talk about the topic, Shubhankar, is I'm just amazed how, over the last couple of months, I think people have just been adapted so much to, first of all, these virtual meetings and virtual modes, and secondly, to also giving up their weekends and, evenings just in the hope that they can actually be part of the solution to help people and, in the social sector. And that for me is just truly heartwarming to see the amount of people, like I said, having so many people log in on a Saturday, and this keeps happening constantly. So I'm just amazed at how resilient people are in this sector, more than any other sector that I've worked with. So I think we really want to acknowledge that. To your question, Shubhankar, and it's a very broad question. I don't know where to start and what to go into, but I can tell you a few things. I mean, I think we all realize that no organization is self-sufficient, right? I think that's the first thing we all have to establish, right? People sometimes feel, I think decades ago, an English author had beautifully said that no man is an island. And just to prove that human beings cannot and will never be able to lead a life without depending on others. Similarly, I think organizations also, in the past, they have foolishly maybe believed it, but organizations are not self-sufficient, right? They always got to rely on others. And these organizations, and it doesn't matter who it is, even governments actually got to rely on support and working with other institutions outside the government's mandate to be able to be successful. Similarly, if you're in the social sector, it doesn't matter if you're a implementing partner, it doesn't matter if you're a technology partner, it doesn't matter if you're a donor, it doesn't matter who you are. I think we got to first realize and acknowledge that we are not self-sufficient. And when I say self, it can be in anything. It can be in any kind of resource, right? People, when you say self-sufficient, immediately you start thinking about financial resources, but it's even beyond financial resources, right? I mean, intellectually, we're not self-sufficient. In the diversity of thoughts, we're not self-sufficient. There are so many reasons why it's proved that as an individual or an organization, we're not self-sufficient. So I think I'm making a case saying that it is very natural for individuals and organizations to seek out others who can complement them, from whom you can either learn, be corrected, pool your resources, and so on and so forth. The challenge in this particular sector, social sector, has been that unlike many other sectors where there's very clear mandates on what organizations do, and what is it that they're good at, what is it that they're not good at. When you have that kind of data available in certain sectors, for example, let's take the auto sector, or let's take the IT sector. You very clearly know what a particular IT organization does. You very clearly know what a particular organization in the auto sector does. And when you know that, it becomes very easy for others to kind of approach them, or for them to approach someone else and say, hey, maybe there's some value in us working together to do something. But in this sector, one of the many challenges that we face is that data is not available. It's not transparent. So it's very difficult for us to know what is it that Shubhankar's organization really focuses on very clearly, and what is it that they're missing. But it's not really available because there's no real reason for us to make that publicly available. And because of that, the first step in a collaboration is to be able to know what is it that you have, what is it that someone else has, and what is it that a collaboration might look like. That itself becomes a challenge, right? Because you don't even know. If today you ask me, if I were to build a collaborative in the agri sector, in increasing farmers' living wages, an area that we work on, I can tell you based on our experiences who works in it, but I don't have real data to tell you who does what. And that becomes a challenge when I'm actually seeking out collaborations, right? So I think that is something that needs to be worked through, to be able to have as much of the data available so that people can then make smart decisions on who to approach. So that's the first step. Now, once you approach them, again, in this sector, which is very unique to the sector, it's in other sectors, whether you like it or not, when organizations come together, they're all guided by some common principles. If it's a private sector, they're all guided by, you got to make sure that these collaborations end up in increasing value for our stakeholders, or, increasing wealth for our organizations, and so on and so forth, right? I mean, they have that. I'm not saying it's correct, but I'm just saying that's how it's decided in a private sector collaborative. So they're very clear that as long as they're going towards that path, this collaboration is working. Now, again, in this sector, that becomes a challenge, right? Because most of our outcomes, and rightly so, I'm not saying that this needs to change. Most of our outcomes are sometimes really long-term. Sometimes they're very difficult to measure. Then so the second challenge is when we collaborate together, how do we set very clear targets and goals so that we know that this collaboration is actually moving forward and it's not getting stalled. So that becomes a challenge, right? So I think when we enter a collaboration, it doesn't matter at what level, right? I'm not talking about, whether you're a donor, whether, it doesn't matter. I'm just talking about collaboration at large. So the second challenge is, how do you really clearly define goals when maybe internally yourself, you've not really defined that, right? That's the second challenge. And the third one, which I think is equally interesting, is that I think too many of us in this sector are too polite, just because given the work that we do and we are also passionate, we're too polite. So what happens in a collaboration then is, we are a little hesitant to put, put some milestones or put some process in place that lets us see if this collaboration is working or not, right? We cannot take the pulse or the temperature of the collaboration to see, hey, is this working? What should we do? And so what happens is, in the third step, because it's not designed properly, you might end up having some collaborations which at the start it sounded like a good idea, but because you've not really been open in letting that person know that this is not working, it is just going through the motion without really achieving what it should be. These are some of the challenges that we face within the sector, very unique to the sector, I believe, in collaboration. In spite of that, I should say, especially this last year, and I don't know if it's because of COVID or, in spite of COVID, I'm not really sure, but it's just amazing the number of collaborations that I personally have seen taking off in these last 6 months, keeping in mind all these 3 challenges that I shared. And it's been just amazing, right? And in these collaborations, and I know our colleagues here on this conversation themselves have been part of several collaborations, and we are involved with them, fortunately, in some of them. So there's an amazing program that they're doing in Punjab, in which and what I really like about certain collaborations is how you bring the right stakeholders, right? Because identifying the right stakeholders is also very, very important. Because if you have all of the same kind of people coming together, it's good, but it really doesn't move things. It doesn't bring about the transformational change that you would like. But whereas if we have like people who are, who can actually play a role in changing policy and systems, let's say government, right? Because we know that's a role they play. Government also helps in really scaling it up. And then you have people on the ground who you really need, so implementation partners. And then you have someone like who brings all of this together, so technology partners. So if you have all these different stakeholders come together, I think those kind of collaborations are really sustainable, right? Those are truly the transformational collaborations that we need. And I know in Punjab, one example of a collaboration that Shiksha Lokam is part of. And it actually has all these 3 stakeholders that I'm talking about. And I think those are the kind of collaborations that we have more of. It is really, really what we need in this nation. But again, I want to end this first piece by saying that, let's acknowledge that collaborations are not easy. They're work in progress. It's not as easy as Shubhankar reaching out and saying hi to Ayeshna and saying, hey, let's work together. And you're saying, yes, let's work together. And, going off and working. It's not as easy as that, right? You don't have to reach out to Ayeshna if you feel that it's not going to really be helpful. So I think taking it step by step and then actually having the checks in place to say that this is working or not working is very, very important. But I think all of us are saying that it's impossible not to see a future in which collaboration is a choice. I'm going to stop here now and, come back later to share some more points on this.
Thank you, Pradeep. That was very insightful. I agree with whatever you were saying. Like, I mean, when I was hearing you, I was going into my mind, what are the challenges I faced, like when I had to collaborate, when I had to approach someone for collaboration. And I feel like mindset shift to collaborate is sometimes a very big challenge for the organizations. Sometimes the ego of the entrepreneur, the reluctance to share the ideas, the insecurity about organizations, about the visibility coming into question. So it comes in the spirit of collaboration. It comes in the way of that. And the idea of the entrepreneur is very close to them. They have worked very hard to identify the problem, come up with an innovative solution, get people together to work on it. It's sometimes difficult for that organization or that group of individuals to trust someone with the idea and make changes to the plan that they have. But in my experience, even for organizations who are willing to collaborate, the biggest challenge is, like, as you said, knowing what the other people are doing and is it possible to collaborate? So that lack of formal or informal spaces where the organizations working in the same geography or the similar domains, they can come together and speak of their celebrations, the challenges, the programs that they're doing. So I, as an individual, has gained a lot from these kind of spaces. An example of this would be the base camp, which Edumentum had organized in January, in which the previous cohorts were also invited along with the current cohort. So it was there I met Soumya and Jonathan, the founders of Barefoot Edu Foundation. And from there, one conversation led to another. And first, we were thinking of having the same office space and the same chartered accountant. And now we are planning to do an entire program together. So this was one place like where actually we could find the synergies, and the conversations proceeded, and a lot of materialized. Like we have come a long way from January to now, where we're launching a new program. I have been a part of multiple such spaces, and although initially we did find synergies, but once we came back, it was quite difficult to sort of connect back, and I think that didn't happen. I feel what worked in this base camp at Edumentum was it was just not like an informal meeting space, but also we participated in sessions together. We shared our responses, we brainstormed with each other. That way, we got to know like how the thinking process of different organizations were, what they were striving toward, what their vision was, and I think it was very clear from there on to actually start garnering interest about the other organization and seeing if we can actually work together. So going ahead, if I feel like if such spaces, like such kind of meets are organized by foundations and CSRs, so organizations come to know each other better and finally come to find some avenues of collaboration, come up with some solutions to existing challenges in the partnerships. Like for example, Barefoot Edu is like a specialist in early childhood education, and for us, like although we are focusing with the entire school, but then combining both the organizations, we have like expertise from pre-primary till grade 10. And so this was like something which really clicked. The other challenge I feel is the implementation part. Like as you said, like I mean, sometimes we are not very sure how things are going to work out and what is the role of each organization or individual there. So coming up with a joint action plan, with a common monitoring plan, being open to leverage each other's strengths. Like sometimes you need to take a step back, trust the other person, their working style. So this requires a lot of time, empathy, and sometimes with the pressure of deliverables, organizations are unable to do that. Like they are already committed something to the stakeholders, to the funders, and sometimes like the pressure is too much. Like people start seeing the collaboration. Like I mean, want to see the results of the collaboration very soon, in maybe the first year or in the first like few months itself, rather than like looking at it as a long-term investment which would bear fruits in the future. So if like from the donor space or even from the stakeholders, we can just make it very clear why we are collaborating and how the collaboration would actually benefit in the next 5 years and next 10 years, I think it would be very sustainable to build those partnerships. So I would like to hear from Ayeshna about her share of challenges with collaboration and what kind of support she would like to get from the ecosystem.
Thank you, Shubhankar. Thank you, Pradeep. I'm sure all of our stories are not that different. My first brush with the challenges in collaboration, actually, they started they go back to the previous job that where I was working at TIS, and my job required me to travel across the country, monitor NGOs, and present our suggestions and findings to the funders. And it was here that for the first time, at least, I witnessed how many NGOs truly exist in India. And then secondly, how many NGOs are actually working in the same space. So for example, let's say a municipal school in Mumbai, and you would have all of these NGOs working in the same school, working with, I'm sure with the same shared goal of improving the whole school. And even though, we would see that their programs would show some sort of output individually, but the overall, the way the school was improving or the way the school was heading, the impact on the school remained very, very low. And even though they were all, merely working inches away, classrooms away, there was no functional linkage or no communication between these NGOs. And that for us as a third party was extremely puzzling. So that is where, my colleague and I, we got talking, and that's where the idea of Varitra came about, and where we, discussed that we wish to go back to Haryana and we wish to sort of take away this learning and probably not repeat this into our work. But having said that, I would like to answer the main challenges that we felt into two parts. First would be the process, and second would be the intent. Process wise speaking, I think we've reduced it we've reduced collaboration today to a process of walking with our legs tied to each other. जिसकी हिंदी में कहावत भी होती है कि आप टांगों से टांगे जोड़कर चलते हैं, जिससे या तो आप बहुत लंबा नहीं चल पाते हो या फिर आप थोड़ी दूर चल के आप गिर जाते हैं. So a lot of us are confusing what collaboration actually means, and very simply, to simply put, I think in my own experience, it's simply that you continue doing what you were doing. You just do it in a more complementary, in a more synergized manner together. And that absolutely does not mean that at some point, at any point you need to mirror each other. You need to work hand in hand, limiting each other's speed or speeding up unnaturally to meet your partner. None of that sorts. I also feel that this is one reason why a lot of social startups are today hesitating to even explore collaboration as an opportunity. I also feel that, personally speaking, for us, because we started working with a lot of partners at a very early stage, it has posed a lot of issue for us because we were a very super energized bunch of people who just started their own organization, wanted to achieve so much in a short span. But working with partners required us to take a lot of pauses, to slow down quite a bit, at times even step back, as Pradeep mentioned, step back, trust each other, trust the other partner to take it forward at times. And also, come back and spend a lot of time same paging our purpose. And that could be extremely frustrating, and it was for us at times. Secondly, I also feel that, at times, I personally felt that it was, partnerships were encroaching into my independent space, or the organization's independent to do things the way organization wanted to. Because a lot of times you do have to prioritize collaborative activities over your own organizational activities. So I think finding that right balance becomes extremely crucial. Also, having said, spoken about all these challenges, I still feel that you can't truly undertake collaboration without actual engagement. And today, so many NGOs have also been doing it in the form of subcontracting work, which with no clear purpose of why are they coming together, why are they doing what they're trying to do together. There's no communication at times, there's no mutual respect also. And I don't think that's very, very long lasting. Second, I'd like to say about the intent. I have seen, while we've been very lucky that a lot of organizations, a lot of individuals, even the community, they've been very receptive, they've been very positive. But a few times we've also seen organizations, individuals being really close when we try to approach. They're very hesitant to open up their content. They're very hesitant to talk about their ideas, training design, which is very surprising because essentially we all are working in a field like social sector, which by value is non-competitive as a field. So I think what we end up doing here is we end up duplicating a lot of work. At times we had to do something that we knew that an organization in the next city was already doing. It was similar, the space was similar. All we had to do was try and find a way if we could come together, and we couldn't. So we ended up spending so much time duplicating efforts, and that is another reason why so many startups exhaust their resources so soon. They burn out so soon. Because collaboration, we often fail to recognize that efficiency is a very big virtue that collaboration adds. And I truly hope that more and more startups recognize that, and they recognize the importance of efficiency. Lastly, I'd like to also talk about the trend that collaboration has become of late. And it is very important that I say this because so many times, you'll see startups joining hands with anybody, as Pradeep mentioned, even if, we're always being the good people, always saying yes to everything. Varitra has also done that. We've anyone who approached us, even if it has had nothing to do with our project, the fact that they wanted to do in the same city, for example, we're like, yeah, karke dekhte hain. And, having that resilience and having that mindfulness to say ki this does not, even though the organization is a great organization, the opportunity is great, but if it doesn't fit in what I am trying to do, having that courage to say no, not being always tempted with the thought of collaboration is it's equally important to the intent of reaching out. I would, I would like to close by saying that one very important thing is that collaboration at times can also make you judge your own, your own uh, performance, because at times you would realize that you've entered a collaboration which has slowly now reached a stage where there's no scope of evolving. It's run its full course, and at times you might have to close it sooner than you thought. So also saying stepping back at the right time, it's often challenging, it's extremely important. We as a team have faced certain setbacks, but we've learned it. We've also learned it that it's collaborations do not last long, as Shubhankar was also mentioning, that while it's good to have that 5-year plan, that 2-year plan, 3-year plan, it's also okay to be flexible, saying that we've probably hit a roadblock, and we are going to take a step back from this collaboration. So that's equally important. um, and of course, one challenge that's I think everyone here will agree with us is, how do we find funding for a a complex structure that collaboration is in a social sector. And I would like to know from you, Pradeep, what do you think from a funder's lens? What is the way forward of seeking funding for collaboration? So over to you, Pradeep.
Thank you for that, Ayeshna. I just found your experiences and your honesty very refreshing. I think to even accept and admit that there are times when you say yes and you jump to collaborations and then later regret it. I think I just want to again highlight why it is very, very important. In a weird way, it's like thinking about personal relationships, right? I mean, you don't jump into anything and then commit to a personal relationship, right? You would do all the work, you would do due diligence, you would really, I mean, you wouldn't be pressurized into it, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think sometimes, and this kind of leads to funding also, I feel like sometimes when organizations are desperate for whatever reasons, they're desperate for additional resources, for getting into a new sector, a market, or whatever and all, then they tend to sometimes make decisions that are not the best, thought through decisions. So, to your question, Aisha, honestly, I don't think we look at funding as a donor. We don't look at funding requests from collaborators any differently than funding requests from individuals. For us, it's all the same, right? It's just, our funding is still dictated by what the outcome of either the collaborative or the individual organization is. So if a collaborative comes together also and seeks funding, for us, we're not going to look at it very differently from an individual coming and asking for us, right? I mean, the thing for us that is still drives the way funding, for us at least as a foundation, is what is the intended outcome, right? What is it that collectively as an organization you're trying to achieve? And of course, for us, that outcome, it's less important whether it's achievable in the short term or long term. What is more important, there's a clarity of thought there, right? That these organizations that are coming together have really thought through this, right? And it's okay, like, we realize that, and this happens in any collaboration, right? If 2 or 3 organizations come together, we realize that some of their individual outcomes might have to be compromised for the sake of the collaborative, and that's fine. But majority of the outcomes for each of these organizations should still hopefully be achieved to that collaborative, right? And that's the way we look at it. That the outcomes of each one of these organizations, a little bit compromise is okay because we realize it, but too much compromise for us would raise flags, because then, like you said, Ayeshna, it would then give us an indication that I think this particular organization just went into this collaboration for the sake of it, because they're not achieving the outcomes to this collaborative. Why are they in this collaborative? It makes it a little doubtful and suspicious, right? So I think that's something that we would look out for. The second thing we would look out for, and we have failed in this also, I'm also being like you, Ayeshna, I'm following your example and saying that we've also failed. There's a few collaborators. See, one thing that we've been doing since I've been here for 3 years now in India is like you said, for some reason, the booth of collaboration for me from day one has been in trying to get our partners and everyone that we work with to really talk to each other. And I guess it came out of the fact that we have a very unique position in that we get to meet a lot of organizations, right? For whatever reason, if you're a donor, a lot of people come to you. I mean, I see a lot of organizations, like I would have just seen Ayeshna, and in the next meeting, Shubhankar comes and he says something very similar, and I'd be like, that's really weird. Do you know Ayeshna? Have you spoken to her? Because she's doing something very similar to yours, right? And so when I saw their opportunities, we were asking ourselves, what if we get Ayeshna and Shubhankar together in a room and we don't do anything? We just let them speak and see if there's something there. And we started doing that in our programs intentionally. We don't really have a strong focus anymore in education, so which is why we don't do it in education, but in the other programs that we do, whether it's gender or the farmers and technology and all that, we started doing that. We said, listen, whether a grant comes out of this or not, it is irrelevant. But it is a wasted opportunity if these 50 organizations that we know in the country that are working on violence against women, for example, at least don't know of each other, then it's a crime. It's the least that we can do is to bring them together in rooms so that they can have conversations and organically develop these kind of partnerships, right? So we started doing that. That's the reason why we started doing it a couple of years ago, just to your point, Shubhankar, of in a way playing that matchmaker's role, right? Saying that we're not forcing any collaborations, but I think Shubhankar should know Ayeshna and Ayeshna should know Shubhankar, right? And so why don't we, get you guys together in a meeting to see, and this is based on what we know of each of you. So, but having said that, there's a few that it's failed, right? And this is where I think when I look back at it, it's introducing the two of you to each other. And then the two of you, went ahead and said, we want to form a collaborative, and then together came to us for a request for a grant. And we said, great, it looks like, the two of you know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And, here's the grant and the outcomes look great, let's work together. And then we find out in a few months that the two of you cannot stand the sight of each other, right? You guys don't speak with each other. And the way we find out is that each of you are sending mails to us separately when we are confused and said, wait a minute, Shubhankar, why are you not including Ayeshna in these mails? And all? So this happened to us. I'm giving you an example of things. And so when I look back at that, I think another thing that we should, and we do now continue looking for when these collaboratives come to us for funding, is not only the shared outcomes, because in this particular example where we feel the collaborative failed, they met all those criteria of, do they have a shared outcome? Okay. Does it look like they have the strengths? Okay. But somehow they didn't get along with each other, right? They were not, and it could be strong personalities. It could be the organization's two cultures didn't meet or whatever it is. And I think there should be something there that lets us as donors also evaluate that. I don't quite know what it is, but I feel quite a few collaborations also fail because of that clash of cultures, clash of, whatever it is, egos or whatever it is between organizations. And that can be, as you can imagine, that can be really, that can have a huge consequence to the, yes, to the collaborative itself, but also the intended outcome, right? Which is, so, these organizations coming together to actually, let's say help a community of farmers in Jharkhand or something. They're the ones who ultimately suffer because of this, right? So I think for us, one of the things we're not really good at evaluating yet, but we really want to start doing is how do we really evaluate for a cultural fit, right? And the only way we can do that now is that, we got to do as much due diligence separately to find out from others on what Ayeshna's and Shubhankar's organization's culture is and DNA is and what their past has been on collaborations. So in a way, what I'm saying, I guess, is, of course, for some organizations, they would not have a track record of collaboration. That's fine. For those of them who do have it, I think what we are going to start doing now is actually go back to some of those past collaboratives to ask their references and see, what, and this is not the technical things. So when we go back, I don't want to find out what are the technical things that Ayeshna or Shubhankar brought, from their organizations to these collaboratives, but just culturally, like what was their management style, what was their working style and all that, because for that, I think that gives us a better understanding as a donor of whether we should even bring the two of you together, right? And I think that's been for us an expensive learning in collaboration. So that's an additional thing that we're going to start looking for.
Sure. Thank you so much, Pradeep. In interest of time, we'll just take one question, and the question is for you, Pradeep. While we talk about collaboration amongst civil society organizations, could you perhaps share, a collaboration of a different kind, which is of funders? So how does a collaboration of different funders in this ecosystem look like?
Yeah, so the most, believe it or not, 80% of the collaborations that we've been a part of in the last 6 months have been of just funders and donors and private sector coming together. So, and these are also very interesting because I think when we come together, there is even less compromise, right? Because we are saying, listen, because I think there's less compromise because most of us, believe that we have, and know that we have, first of all, most of us have very strong outcomes ourselves that we need to deliver on. And then we believe that, because we are very, dedicated to our outcomes, let's say the community of women. So we feel less open to actually making compromises within a partnership if they don't have that same outcome, right? So I would be very hesitant with another donor, right? Who comes and says, listen, and I'll give you examples. So we have, and I'm not going to use the names of these donors. So we have entered into collaboratives with several donors recently. One of many examples of the collaborations in this last 6 months, where we have come together and said, let's all put our grant money together to create a vehicle which can then be used to provide debt to the social enterprises in the sector who are now suffering during COVID, who all need access to cash and money for various reasons, either to pass it on to their communities themselves or for their own operations. So let's all come together and provide debt as a mechanism. And sometimes those kind of collaborations come together because like we directly might not be able to provide that debt, let's say. So it's an instrument that we cannot do. Someone else can do it, but then they have another thing that they cannot do. So some regulatory reasons also bring some of us together. But when we came together, we were very, very particular that, listen, yes, we would welcome this collaboration with you because it gives access to us for a debt instrument as a tool which we cannot do otherwise because of our, the way we are registered. But at the same time, we said, listen, there's no way we're going to get into this if you don't have a mandate that says that these enterprises that you're going to help have a strong focus on gender and women, right? And if you don't do that, I'm sorry, we're not interested in this. So I think in that's example that I said of how you got to make sure that even though you might be a little desperate to get into a collaboration, it doesn't compromise on your core outcome that you're willing to work on, right? You might make a few compromises. You might say, you know what, initially I'd only intended to work with women in central India, but fine, since you have a focus on Northeast India for women, I'm willing to make a compromise. A few compromises have to be made when you get into a collaborative. But I think that's one example. We've done a few with also where government has been the partner. So there are several, 80%, like I said, of the collaborations we have done in the last 6 months have been with other funders and government. I could go on and on. I'm just conscious of the time, so I don't want to give too many examples.
But thank you so much, Pradeep. I'm sure that I had a great time talking to you both, and I'm sure everyone here would be able to take out some bits from your wisdom today. In interest of wrap this up very, very quickly. I feel that personally speaking, also I think we no more see NGOs as deterrents in business growth and development, and we've also seen how corporates have the potential to become growth engines for non-profits. How their expertise can be leveraged by NGOs. So I really hope that going forward, more and more social startups have the opportunity to explore collaboration as an actual approach. And I think we need more and more platforms like Edumentum to show these social startups the way ahead, and for them to also understand what collaboration, the true essence of collaboration. I think lastly, I would like to end by saying that I think all we need to do is just find a balance between going ahead and giving back, not only as probably non-profits, but also corporates. And I'm sure collaboration is an infinite opportunity for all of us. Thank you once again. And I now hand it over to the next speaker. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pradeep, Ayeshna, and Shubhankar for this engaging discussion on the power of collaboration. It has indeed shown us that collaboration can be a way of being for organizations, and you have demonstrated it through multiple examples that you guys have shared with us today.